back to my channel. It's Alexis Nicole with the Nurse Nook. So I really wanted to do a video on how I study / take notes. I've gotten a lot of questions, not only from people on YouTube, but also other college students and just like family members. They just want to know how I study for nursing school. So basically the way I study is in a 4-step process. Number 1 is to read through the PowerPoints my teachers post. Number 2 is to write out the PowerPoints that my teachers post. Number 3 is to do as many practice questions as I can on the subject. Number 4 is to read through the notes that I wrote as many times as I can. So basically that 4-step process is how I prepare for an exam. So I have a totally different process on preparing for lecture in class. In our program, reading is a big thing, and I know this is big in all nursing programs. And let me just tell you, I'm not a reader. I hate reading, especially if the material isn't interesting to me. So before class, what I try to do is, if I can't read the assigned reading that the teacher assigned for that specific day, is I'll try to go through the PowerPoints and to look over it. That way when I get to class, if I have any questions, I can just say, I didn't understand what this meant. Can you explain this? So that way I had already looked over the material and it's not just all brand new to me. So that's what I do before class. It's really quick, easy, nothing really special about it. I just try to read the textbook that the teacher assigned, and if I can't read, I'll just look over the PowerPoints to give my mind some information on the topic that we're going to be discussing in class. Now, when it comes to studying for tests, nursing school tests are super tricky. You need to really know your information to be able to apply it properly and make sure you do good on that test. It's not going to do you any good to just memorize facts at the textbook, facts that your teacher said. You really need to understand the information to be able to apply it, because they're going to ask you tricky questions and they're going to purposely try to trick you up, and the only way to really get the right answer is to know the principles. You really need to know the whys, the hows, why you do this and everything, to really be able to understand the concepts you learn in nursing school. I'm very fortunate that in my school we don't have an outline for tests. The only thing we have is a test blueprint, which basically tells you how many questions on each subject are going to be on the test. So if we're learning diabetes, the surgical patient, and the reproductive system, it'll say diabetes 20 questions, reproductive 5 questions, surgical patient 15 questions. It basically breaks it down for you so you know where to spend the majority of your time studying. So when it comes to preparing for my exam, first step I'll do is I'll go through all the PowerPoints for the test. So say the first topic I'm studying is diabetes. So I'll open the diabetes PowerPoint. I'll read through the PowerPoint. I'll read the notes I wrote on the PowerPoint and just skim through it, refresh my mind. And then after that is when I go to step 2, which is writing out the PowerPoint. So here I have a binder of all of my handwritten PowerPoint notes. All of my notes aren't in here. I got kind of lazy towards the middle and end of the semester, so I only have most of exam 1 in this book. And as you can see, I like to color code my notes. I try to do every slide in a different color so it pops out at me, because I'm a very visual learner. So if I remember that I wrote something about insulin in blue, it's easier for me to pick it from my knowledge and apply it when I'm taking a test, because I can remember literally looking at what I wrote. If I'm doing a comparison, I'll split the page in half, and so I can see it right there. This side is diabetes 1, this side is diabetes 2, this side is diabetes type 1, this side is diabetes type 2. I kind of just like to, have everything visual for me. That's what works best for me, is to be visual. So step 3 is to do as many practice questions as I can. I usually like to go on Quizlet and I'll just find, random questions on the subjects I'm working on, or just anything I can find, really. I just like to do as many questions as I can. One of my go-to books is the Davis Success Series. The series is amazing. I highly recommend it. It gives you tons and tons of practice questions. And there's even been questions straight from this book that were on my test, so I'm so thankful for this book. They have one for every class. They have a med surg one, they have a mental health one, they have a maternity and pediatrics one, fundamentals, anything you can think of. They always have a Davis Success series book on it. I highly recommend this series. So in conjunction with my Davis Success book, I also like to get my ATI book out, and there's also about 5 questions in the back of that, as well as a little summary of the subject. So I was forced to buy this bundle for almost $800. So I forced myself to use this as much as I can. And it's also a really good resource. I really love this. I just wish I didn't have to pay $800 for it. It comes in a series of about 10 other books, but this is the one for Menster. In the front of the chapter, it'll have just important topics, important facts that you should know about this subject. And in the back, it has 5 questions on each subject. So I love this book. It's great. If your school requires this book, I highly suggest you put it to use. You paid all this money for it, you might as well use it. And this is the same company that makes the NCLEX exam, so these questions are structured like the NCLEX. So you want to get as much practice in as you can now for the NCLEX. Keep going over these questions, keep reviewing these style questions. It's going to help you in the long run. Now, something that I didn't mention that I don't normally do, but I do this specifically for mental health. For some reason, mental health, it was not an easy class for me, and I needed a lot of extra help memorizing things. There's a lot of little things about mental health that you have to memorize, and a lot of the stuff tends to blur together sometimes. So I literally need to see it in black and white to see, okay, this is this and this is that. So I started doing flashcards for this class. I don't normally do flashcards, but for this class, for some reason, it helped me, especially with the meds, because there's a lot of tricky meds in here. So I just like to write everything out. That way, if I'm on the go, I can just pull it out, review it. And it's also good for my visual learning style. Here's just a couple examples from my flashcard kit. So for mental health, instead of writing out on my computer paper the notes, I'll just write it on these index cards. And for me, that just works better for me. I honestly do not know why. It's the same thing. It's just something with the index card. It just helps me. So my 4th step is to just go over my notes over and over again. I do this as much as I can, however much time I can. I try to fit as much in. Usually, I don't always make it to this step because I tend to cram sometimes. Ideally, like to start studying for an exam a week ahead. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes when I don't start enough in advance, I start cramming and all the information just gets jumbled. So I suggest that you start at least a week before your exam. Do a chapter or 2 every day. Usually my exams are on 5 chapters, typically 4 to 6. 6 at most, 4 is kind of low. But I would do a chapter every day. So for example, my test is on Monday and this is the previous Monday. So I'm gonna start this Monday reading through the PowerPoint, writing out the notes, doing practice questions, and going over them one more time. This is just all for one subject. So now Tuesday comes and I'll pick another topic, another chapter. I'll do the PowerPoints, I'll write out my notes, I'll do practice questions, and I'll review it. And I'll continue this process until I finish all the chapters, and say I would probably finish all the chapters around that Friday if I started Monday. So for those 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, I just like to do as many practice questions as I can. Just keeping the information fresh in my head. I already know the information, I studied it. Now I just want to continue reinforcing it and doing practice questions. If my test is that Monday, I'll normally meet an hour and a half before my test with a couple of friends that I have a study group with, and we'll just go over information, any important things, any facts, anything that someone might have thought was important that I didn't think was important. We just share all our little tidbits, and then we, take 10 minutes to relax, and then we go in and we take our exam. So that is basically how I study for nursing school. Let me know if you guys have any suggestions on anything you would like to see. Stay tuned for more videos. Thanks for watching.